Now we're in the month of Adar, the joyful month when we celebrate the holiday of Purim. The holiday occurs on the 13th and 14th, and some places the 15th of the month of Adar. And how do we get to that date on our calendar? It's referenced in the story, as you recall, when the evil minister, whose name is Haman, wanted to find a date to annihilate the Jewish population of the kingdom of King Ahasuerus, a kingdom that spanned from Ethiopia to India, 127 provinces, very big territory. And so Haman was trying to figure out what day to select for this plot of his. And so he casted lots. And that's how we get the name for the holiday, because Pur, or P-U-R, is lot, and Purim is the plural for lots. So Haman casted these lots. We're not sure if they were dice related or straws or whatever he devised. And it came out to be the 13th and 14th, well, the 14th of the month of Adar. A reference to the 13th, because that's also tied to the holiday. It's called Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther. Also taken from the story from the Megillah, or the scroll of Esther, which we read the night of and the following morning on the holiday of Purim. And so why do we have a fast? Well, we take our example from Queen Esther, who, when was told by her cousin Mordecai that it was her responsibility to go to the king to thwart the decree that was casted by Haman. And so it was a very dangerous situation that Queen Esther finds herself in. Why? Well, according to Persian rule, no one can visit the king unannounced, even the queen, a beloved queen as Esther was. And so she knew that she had to do this in order to save herself and the people of the 127 provinces. And so before she decided to go to the king to beg for a resolve to this problem, she decided to fast for 3 days and asked everyone in the capital city of Shushan, Persia, to do the same. And so in keeping with that element of the story, we have the day before Purim called Ta'anit Esther, the fast of Esther, which occurs on the 13th of the month of Adar. And now the day of Purim, the 14th, was the date casted by Haman. And I also indicated that there is a 15th of Adar, which is known as Shushan Purim. And this is also taken from the story. And this tradition goes that any person who resides in a walled city, like Jerusalem, has an additional day of celebration. Where does this come from in the story? Well, after I'm going through the story very briefly. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the plot and the intrigue of this very famous story. After Esther had told the king resolved to be rid of his evil minister Haman, who was hung, along with his 10 sons. The decree was out, and there's a rule in Persia that once a decree is signed by the royal ring of the king, it cannot be overruled. And so a new rule had to be enacted to give the Jews the ability to defend themselves. And so it was that the king wrote a different decree, a second decree, enabling all the Jews of the 127 provinces to defend themselves. And with that the Jews were able to be victorious, and the plot was quelched. However, Esther made a special decree or a request of the king, asking for an additional day of fighting in Shushan to take care of all of the backers of Haman. And so there was an additional day of fighting, which transformed into an additional day of celebration even today. So people who live in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and want an extra day of partying will travel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to engage in the celebrations that go on, because Jerusalem to this day is a walled city. Okay, so that's basically the dates of the holiday and where they come from and how they were arrived at. And we also have 4 specific mitzvot that are connected to this holiday. And the 4 mitzvot are the reading of the Megillah, not once but twice, the evening before, or the evening of, and the following morning. Reading all of the words of the story, making loud noises when we hear the name of Haman to drown out his memory, and to have a wonderful time being dressed up in costumes and being together with the community. That's number 1. Number 2 is the tradition of giving out baskets of ready-to-eat food known as mishloach manot, or shalach manas, as the Ashkenazi community call it. This is a tradition that is also recounted in the end of the Megillah, that gifts were sent to and fro. Number 3 is to have a feast, a festive meal on the afternoon of Purim, and to engage in laughter and merriment and drinking, maybe sometimes a little bit too much, and the notion of ad lo yada. It's one word comprised of really 3 smushed together. Until you do not know is the translation of ad lo yada. Ad lo yada. And the notion is you should drink enough until you get tipsy and you're not sure if you're blessing Haman and cursing Mordechai. And the other 4th mitzvah connected to the holiday of Purim is to make sure that you send charity money to the poor. And so we have remnants of the story that we see in our current and modern festivities and customs in celebration of Purim. And we also have the idea that the underlying theme of the story really is being in the right place at the right time. And is it coincidence, or was it the hand of God? And because the name of God is nowhere to be seen in the Megillah, the name of God is not there, we have to believe that God's will and God's strength is indeed in the story, making people be at the right place at the right time, and being victorious to the end. So Adar is a lucky month. Many rabbis say that this is a good month to sign a contract, state a case in court, maybe buy a lottery ticket. We judge ourselves as truly lucky during this month. And we hope that our joy increases as we sing this song of Misha Nichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. When the month of Adar enters, our joy increases. So my wish and hope for everyone is that through the pandemic, we see the light beginning to shine at the end of the tunnel, releasing our bonds of solitude and isolation, and hoping that our joy indeed increases during this month. Chag Sameach, and have a joyful Purim.